The first thing you come through the door is this camera, which is a very similar camera to the one that Edward used in Mexico. So a lot of the stuff you're seeing is stuff that Edward had or was closely related to what he had. The desk, very important piece of history. There's a wonderful little sign that you see there. It says, "I don't lend my books to my friends. I don't want to lose my books or my friends." You know, it just shows you how important back then books were. You know, we don't see books that way anymore. You know, we see Kindles and stuff. So books to them was important. You know, this is something you didn't lend out. If you didn't, you wanted to get them back. So I love that part of this house. The image there up on the wall is a picture of Ansel and Edward together. They were great friends. Ansel just lived down the road. And what I love about the photograph is Edward was a small guy. He's 5'3". Ansel was a rather tall guy. He's up around 6 feet. And if you notice in the photograph, Ansel is bending over so he's not towering over Edward Weston, because he had such an incredible respect for Edward. And that's just in that body motion, body movement, trying not to, you know, be way above Edward. It was a great relationship they had, the two of them together. My dad photographed quite a few photographs of Edward, and so did Brett. It's what they did back then. They did portraits of each other. I particularly like that one because Edward is not too sick at the time. You know, he's still in good health. And the one below it is actually the only negative that I own that my father gave to me. It's an original negative. It's a picture of Karis looking through that window from the outside. And Dad gave it to me because it was unique to this house. You know, it's Karis, the house. The chair, I mean, it's such a simple little piece of furniture, but it means a lot because this was Edward's chair, so this is actually where he sat. The family portrait you're seeing on the wall up there was actually a present from Uncle Brett to Gina. Family is very important to her, and so this was a portrait of the whole family. There's Edward, there's my dad, there's Flora, there's Neil, there's Chan, and there's Brett. And if you look closely at it, Brett's actually taking the photograph. You look in his hand, you can see he has the bulb. And he's also the only one that knows when the shutter's gonna go off. So everyone else is looking straight at the camera. And Brett is turned to the side to give his good profile, you know? That one you're seeing up there is pepper number 30. Why it's called that is because it was the 30th pepper he ever photographed. And I think he did a total of 37. This became one of the most iconic images of his work. I think a lot of people saw it like two people embracing. You know, I think he just saw it as a beautiful form, you know. A lot of times what people comment about art says more about them than what the artist was actually thinking. But a portrait done of Tina down in Mexico. And it was done with a smaller camera, the Graflex camera. And he did a whole series of wonderful portraits. All of them were not retouched in any way. It was very straightforward photography. This camera enabled him, the Graflex, to be able to look through the lens as he was taking the photograph. Most view cameras, of course, when the film's in, you can't look through it. So this gave him a flexibility that he could really, and this is great, is she's reciting poetry. So she's in front of him reciting this poem and he's photographing her. So it's a series of, and this is one of the series. The photograph here that you see is actually a photograph of Karis. And there, if you look closely, you can see the chair in the background that I'm sitting on. But that was done right here at the house. And that was done by George Horrell, the famous Hollywood photographer, who was the first person to sign the guest book. The Nautilus shell is done in 1927. It became a stamp, actually. They did a stamp out of that one. But there again, that was a study. And what's interesting about working with that, every time you try something new, you come up against a problem. The problem with 8x10 is the closer you get to the subject matter, the less your depth of field is. So normally a lens would stop down to f64. Well, he was so close to his subject matter that f64 would not bring it all into focus. So he had special stops made for him to stop it down to 240. So most of those images, the pepper, the shells, are all anywhere from 6 to 8 hour exposures. Because basically what he built was a pinhole camera. If you ever played with a pinhole camera, it has infinite depth of field. And so, but also very little light comes through. So that is a 6 to 8 hour exposure. As Pepper 30 was sort of his iconic still life, the nude that you're looking at there is his iconic nude, and that's 227N. And you may wonder, why does he call them these names? Well, those are codes that are written on the back. That was the 227th nude that he ever did. And that's Karis. And it's so funny, when she was alive and she was in this house, she would talk about that photograph and her reaction to it and Edward's reaction to it. And her reaction to it was she didn't like the bobby pins in the hair. And Edward's reaction to it was he didn't like the shadow. And first thing, when you look at that image, I never saw the bobby pins until she mentioned it. And the shadow it doesn't bother me at all. But it's interesting when, you have such a incredibly, you think of Edward Weston, you think of that image. And then you hear their little stories. What I love about Edward's darkroom, and I bring a lot of students in there, some students that have never done analog, they've done digital their whole life. And what impressed me about it is how simple it is. How one single light bulb, one piece, one printing frame, one piece of paper, and 3 chemistry trays. That's all he used. Very, very simple. And what it goes to show is the importance of, and especially in photography, surface. What a surface can do, and how that is part of your language. And to me, the less you clutter up getting that surface correct and getting it right, the better off I am. I'm just that type of person. So you sit and look in you stand in his darkroom and you'll see a 3-minute egg timer. Well, that was his timing for developing. So simple. I've had people go in Edward's darkroom and literally you can watch it on their face. I mean, it's like, oh my God, this is so wonderfully simple, so wonderfully not about the technical aspects of it. It's about what came from this man's heart and how little amount of tools that he needed to express himself and express himself in such a strong and wonderful manner. Gina and I run workshops here at Wildcat. To us, it seemed like just a natural. Edward used to do workshops here. He wasn't as big in workshops as my father was, but to run workshops here, first of all, is our location is so unique. I mean, to come to Wildcat, Edward's home, and photograph nudes. I mean, we do a nude workshop here, which we fill pretty much every time. And the people get to work here in the house, get to work outside. And we spend 3 days together, photographing. And this is where I love the technical part of digital photography can come in, because we only have a short amount of time. The people that are shooting digital, the great thing about it is we can look at their work, put it up on the monitor and I can critique it. At my school, I'd have to go out there, soup the negatives, make proof sheets and make contacts, where the digital, it's such a wonderful tool to be able to instantly, especially with students, show them what they might be doing wrong.